Okay, so welcome to our second episode of Conversations with Kate. So,
Yay!
so thank you to all those that listened to the first episode and gave us such great positive feedback. That was really heartwarming.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the book Emerge by Gavin Griff, the five most common challenges faced by middle leaders and how to overcome them. Now, I think this has a lot of connection for me back to our conversation last week about being on autopilot. How about you, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest part for me is self-awareness,
Hmm.
which is reminds me of I teach coaching with NeuroShine technology, and
Hmm.
there is an equation that is awareness times willingness equals change.
Okay, say that again.
Awareness times willingness equals change.
Fantastic.
So you can be aware and have no willingness to change, and
Hmm.
there will be no change if the equation willingness is zero. Or you can have all the willingness to change in the world, but no awareness, no change will happen.
Fantastic.
So I agree with Gavin,
Hmm.
Gavin Grift, that we have to start with awareness if
Hmm.
we want to change.
Definitely. And I must say, this is a beautifully written book. Gavin,
Yeah.
there's lots of stories in here, and you can really see his heart and soul poured into this book. And I would say it's a bit misleading, talking about middle leaders. And I see why he wrote this for middle leaders, because it's got,
Hmm.
especially the second half, a lot of, um, important tools and tips. But the first half is really, for me, about self-awareness, you know.
Yeah. And having been a head of school, you're a
Mhm.
principal, having been a top leader, this book and looking at leadership and middle leaders, I think being a middle leader is one of the hardest
Mhm.
positions to be in.
Definitely. And I think, this idea of the ego and Eckhart Tolle, which he refers to again. If I can share a little story with you.
Ooh, let's
So
do
I
it.
think it's about 18 years ago. I don't want to be all eat, pray, love, but I was actually happened to be in Bali. And at that point, I think I was very enmeshed with my ego, had not a lot of self-awareness. I had
Yeah.
a lot of problems, being by myself. I was always connecting with others. And then through circumstances, I came to having a week alone by myself in Bali.
Nice.
And I decided I'm going to book a hotel. I asked them to remove the TV.
Ooh, good
And I was going
choice.
to spend some time being alone with myself, which was quite hard. And I happened to go to the bookshop in Bali before I did that and picked up this, The Power of Now.
Yeah.
So this book's nearly 20 years old. So thinking about what Gavin was talking about in the book, I opened it up again. This is the first page I opened back up, and you can see it's all yellow and faded, and it's
Yeah.
highlighted. So this is what the highlighted section I opened up to. If you cannot be present even in normal circumstances, such as when you're sitting alone in a room, walking in the woods, or listening to someone, then you certainly won't be able to stay conscious when something goes wrong, or you are faced with difficult people or situations, with loss or the threat of loss. You will be taken over by a reaction, which ultimately is always some form of fear, pulling putting you into deep unconscious. Those challenges are your tests. Only the way in which you deal with them will show you and others where you are as far as the state of consciousness is concerned, not how long you can sit with your eyes closed or what visions you see.
Powerful.
Powerful.
Yeah.
So Gavin sort of touches on this. There's this self-awareness,
Hmm.
and that's happening, but then it's doing something with it.
Yes.
So
And it goes with my study of neurolinguistic programming and the conscious mind and the unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, you can see my book has fallen apart because I read it in the sauna and the sauna melted the glue. So yeah. Um, where was I? I was laughing at myself. Oh yeah, the connection, you can see connection to NST, which is neuroshine technology, and the connection to neuro-linguistic programming. And he very carefully talks about not only the definitions of middle leaders, because he talks about clarity. Sorry, I'm going in 500 directions. Clarity precedes competence.
Mm-hmm.
And then he models this, I feel, by being very clear about the definitions of um, middle leaders, but also the definitions of um, distinguishing unconscious mind, conscious mind, your conscious self.
Mm. Mm. Yes. And he talked about that intrapersonal and interpersonal, right? So there's
Yeah.
that understanding yourself,
Yes.
then to understand your impact on others. Okay. And then how are you going to use that knowledge? Okay. What are you going to do with it now?
Yes.
So he goes further than just, self-awareness. It's actually action after self-awareness.
Yes. Yeah. And as leaders, I mean, to be honest, I think of leaders who weren't conscious or weren't aware of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this book made me look at myself,
Mm-hmm.
which was quite powerful. And I saw myself in the, when he's going about they're fake names, but I think it's Joshua
Mm-hmm.
and Amelia. Is it Joshua and Amelia? And do you remember the stories? And one didn't get a job and
Oh,
took it
yes.
really hard,
Yeah.
and the other one used it as a self-reflection. I
Mm.
know there have been times when I have not gotten the promotion or gotten the job that I have taken that so hard and looked at all the outer circumstances
Mm.
instead of looking at the internal circumstance.
Hmm. And also, once you're aware of those emotions, it's sort of looking a bit deeper. What are your oh, I'm trying to remember the word, the biases you have, where that's come from. I think Eckhart Tolle would call it your pain body,
Yeah,
you know, that's built up over time with your different experiences.
absolutely. And Gavin definitely talks about the pain points.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think I have the page 18,
Hmm.
that we're talking about. He labels it some important distinctions.
Mm.
And like he's distinguishing between being self-aware and having self-knowledge
Hmm.
and being self-conscious. So we can be self-aware and have self-knowledge. And then when we are self-conscious is when we can witness those internal states
Hmm.
from different parts of our identity.
Mm.
That's what I hear when you're saying impact.
Yes.
So we want to be self-aware, which leads to self-knowledge and gives us understanding of how we impact others.
Hmm. And I think in building that self-awareness, things like mindfulness practice, etc., are very good because, as Eckhart Tolle says, they help you practice to do it, but it's actually the applying of it in the moment,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is really important. So when you're in the moment, taking that breath, and there's a few things that Gavin talks about in there that you can do. Like one of my favorites is committing to commit. So
Yes.
so if you're in the moment and you feel something, you might go, let me get back to you on that. It's a very good tool to use. Instead of making a decision, we always feel like we have to make decisions straight away, saying, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
So it gives you some space to self-reflect. So you've got to have the space to self-reflect as well. You're going to
Yes.
have that self-awareness, but also giving you that space because you can't always reflect in that moment, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's a process, right?
Hmm.
And it's a process of accepting
Mm.
your knowledge of yourself. I need a moment. I
Hmm.
make maybe your self-knowledge is I make bad decisions when I'm put on the spot.
Exactly. And I think really Nadler referred to it in his in that first podcast about being either in or out.
Yeah.
And if you're not psychologically ready, be out. Just
Yes.
don't have that meeting, don't have that conversation. Delay
Yeah.
because you've got to be ready to be in.
Yeah.
And
And
that's,
that,
yeah, it's quite powerful to know when you're ready and when you're not.
yes. And in a day when, especially as a school leader, you know, there's been a fire drill and there's been an accusation of uh against a child against another child and a parent's upset. You've
Hmm.
got a lot going on.
Mm. So sometimes it's better just to delay those conversations or just be honest in the moment and say, look, I'm feeling something. I want to explore that. We'll come back later. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
And have you tried that? Have you done that?
I have been in meetings that I've sort of ended and said, okay, I want to take some time out now to think about this and let's revisit it.
Yeah. I think that it's something that is new to people
Hmm.
because I've done that two times in my career as a head of school. And not everybody looked at that favorably,
Oh, really?
that I was taking time to think.
Hmm. Which sort
Yeah.
of gets back to our conversation last week about people coming to you for answers, right?
Yes.
What are they coming to you for? That vivid.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think it takes some respect and team building
Hmm.
to say we all have to have self-awareness on this team.
Mm.
And that self-awareness can lead us to help us to take the perspective of other.
Mm.
So somebody might need to postpone a meeting. Somebody else might be able to make a decision with
Hmm.
a timeline,
Yeah.
recognizing our impact on others and having that be part of the team
Mm.
dynamics because self-regulation is going to be key.
Hmm. Definitely. So I think this whole idea of self-awareness and self-regulation, going that step further is
Yeah.
really important. And that's why I think Gavin made this book for middle leaders.
Yes.
They are so busy. And I think for me, when I learned about the power of now and I started to learn to recognize my ego and realize that I am not my thoughts,
Yeah.
the things that are happening to me, you sort of have a bit more control over them. And I think that's when things started happening for me in leadership circles. Up until then, they hadn't been. But so I think it's an important, um, phase, I suppose, in a leader's life when they realize this importance of self-awareness and their impact on others.
Yeah. And some people like I had a very short time as a middle leader.
Mhm.
So some people don't go through the trajectory
Yeah.
of having a long time in middle leadership. Some people shoot to the top. Some people don't have a long I had a long time in education as a teacher.
Mhm.
So that's where I agree with you that this book is not just for middle leaders, but also for leaders.
So I think all leaders should really read this book. As a being a leader for a while now, I really still connected with this and really um, brought up some things for me to reconsider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the little anecdote. If we can paint a picture for anybody listening about what it looks like, and you're in a meeting and your plan.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little story in the book. And um, you get questioned,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody says, "Do you think that's going to work?" And the first answer, which you, as a leader, I'm sure you can relate to this, that you've given this answer before, is just like, I've done this before. I have the evidence. And yes, because of that, I know this is going to work. This is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the self-aware answer, which I really liked and can relate to as, as you develop as a leader, that you can turn to that person and go, well, I'm not 100% sure, or something like that. However, I have evidence from the past practice. This has worked really, really well. But why don't you let me know about your concerns?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. Mm.
And then you're leaning in, that person will feel seen, heard, felt.
Yeah. I've tried this before and this has worked, but I'm, what other ideas have we got? We're open to other ideas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the first response is like, I'm being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I have the experience. It's the ego. The ego is being challenged.
Yeah.
And the second response leads into the curiosity.
Hmm. Yeah. So that being curious. And I think you would feel that, right? For me, it's like a very visceral feeling. I feel hot inside
Yes.
when I'm feeling my ego is taking over.
Yes.
Yeah. But the ego is a very, very hard thing to acknowledge, separate, and deal with in the moment. And
Yes.
sometimes it takes over, you know.
Sometimes it does. And it's about recognizing it. I think that's like, first you can know it. You can know, but if you can be bodily aware, like
Mhm.
you're reflecting on, that's a pre-step,
Mhm.
right? If you feel it in your body, then you can know it faster.
Yeah. I think the first thing is knowing that you are not your thoughts and this is happening to you, and the
Yes.
ego is happening to you because of your past, your pain body, other experiences. You may have been challenged in the past, so that's what's making you feel like this person is challenging, but separating that and then dealing with it. And just by going, taking a breath, I'm feeling that. Let's change that to curiosity instead of anger, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gavin also talks in his book, I think it's five different, you know, um, challenges faced by middle leaders. So he's got the pleaser, needing to be liked by people, the ostrich, which is like when change becomes too much, burying your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Then the imposter syndrome, the dynamo, trying to do everything fast. And then the judge and the jury, which I think is about, judging people really
Hmm.
quickly. Now, I don't think we'll have time to touch on all those five today, but I just wanted to mention, for those who haven't read it in the book, this is sort of the second half of the book, which really delves into some of those self-limiting beliefs, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. I sent my team of middle leaders. We had Gavin Grift in the city of Phnom Penh. He was doing a workshop at the International School of Phnom Penh, ISPP. And I sent a team of, I think, 5 middle leaders to his workshop. And they came back with a different vocabulary of how to speak to each other
Oh,
because they
fantastic.
had done the work. So they were recognizing each other as the pleaser, as the dynamo,
Mm,
which I felt did the same as recognizing you're not your thoughts, but recognizing also other people
mm,
are not attacking you. They're actually being themselves.
mm, mm. And that's where things like disc training is very
Hmm.
powerful as well. When you're recognizing how you are, and how the other person is. Like on our leadership team, we have very different personalities.
Yeah.
But when I realized that when you recognize, I'm in between dominant and influential. When I did it, I'm right on that line. So there's dominant, influential, steady, and conscientious or compliant, I think, in the DISC. Are you familiar with the DISC
I
model?
am. I was just wondering, I've taken so many tests,
Yeah.
just going, did I do that one?
Yeah. And you'll probably recognize them by yellow. There's red is dominant, influential's yellow, steadfast is blue, and there's, I think, green compliant. But I mean, there's several different versions of it. But when I recognize on someone on my team, they're coming from the team that of the point that they're always conscientious, they like details. Great. I'm the ideas person that's throwing out things. So when they're talking from a detailed point of view. I'm talking from a big ideas, let's just get on with that point of view. Now,
Yeah.
if you don't understand that that's what the other person's like, but when you understand that that's where they're coming from and it's all a good place, that's where the magic happens. It's like opposites attract.
Yeah. And you can tap into that strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would also identify as a big ideas person. And I love to get those detail-oriented people around me because I know that's something that will work really well together because I'll get the big idea and then the other person gets the details and we can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Exactly. But if you're more, everyone should be like me,
Yeah,
there's going to be conflict, right?
conflict.
Yeah. Well, again, so much in this book to unpack. And, I've reached out to Gavin and he's, really pleased that we're talking about this book. So I'd really recommend all leaders really to get a copy of Emerge and especially work on it with their middle leaders. And if you have the opportunity, like your staff do, to
Yeah.
go on Gavin's course, it would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think reading it as a team. I mean, obviously, because I hold the belief that we should grow
Mhm.
individually and collectively. So yeah, so not only you, but also your team. Buy it for your team.
And there's one tool in here that I've already used actually with myself, and
Yeah.
actually one of our leaders is um he's got the acronym EADIC for when
You
you've
did.
got too much going on. I think it's under the dynamo. And E for eliminate. Can I eliminate this? Is it necessary?
Yeah.
A, automate. Can I get technology to help me, especially with AI now? D, delegate. Can you delegate it to someone else? Then, if not, there's ideate and then
Mhm.
concentrate. And the last bit's just get on with it. Right. So I've actually started using that to run through things and with other middle leaders. So I think there's a lot of tools like that in there. So it's a book I think I'm going to revisit a lot and talk about different tools with my middle leaders and actually tools for myself as well.
And that's a great tool for having a coaching mindset.
Hmm.
I hear coaching questions in that. What can you eliminate?
Definitely.
Yeah. So a tool not just for leaders, but also for coaches.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kate. Another great conversation. I've really enjoyed myself, and I hope anybody listening to this um, gets as much out of it as we do. And
Yeah.
reach out to Kate and myself if you would like some coaching, because I think as we've talked about before, coaching can be a very powerful tool for leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. I often hear, I can have this conversation with myself, but I don't.
Hmm. Hmm.
I need this focused time on me. That's what my clients often say.
Exactly. And that's what we do as coaches. We're thought partners.
Exactly.
And one of my clients said to me last week, um, you know, this is the only time I get to myself where I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very powerful.
So powerful. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Okay, bye.
Thank you.